Good morning. Welcome to the BmoreNews Morning Show. China, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
You're too wide awake early in the morning.
My husband's smoothies get me all perked up.
Smoothies?
Every morning, avocado smoothie, peanut butter smoothie, mixed berry smoothie, mango smoothie. He's the smoothie.
So healthy, so healthy. I'm so impressed.
Well, that's how the day starts. And then by the end of the day, it's like completely falling apart. We gained quite a bit of weight during COVID, and it is not from smoothies.
Did you say peanut butter smoothies?
Yeah, we do he does peanut butter smoothie. I've never made a smoothie, but he does peanut butter smoothies. So it's fantastic.
That's pretty
nice. That's blasphemy. I mean, are you supposed to do that with peanut butter? It's supposed to go with jelly, in the bread, with
no peanut butters and bananas together. He takes out the trash and he makes smoothies.
That is pretty nice. I need somebody to make me smoothies in the morning. Then I would be much more healthy throughout the day. That sounds pretty awesome.
Good morning, Yvette.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good. What's happening in your world?
Good morning. Good to see you.
What's going on?
That is a beautiful black backsplash you have, Kavette. That is gorgeous.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It came with the house.
Yeah, it's nice.
Thanks.
So, China, what are we doing today?
We are talking to Delegate Brooke Lierman, and I'm super excited about it because it looks as though in the past week, right, or in the past, I guess last week really, Delegate Lierman went public with her intention to run for Comptroller. And I think that is actually a position that matters a lot to the Black community. And one thing that I think we all think, right, that's super interesting is that you're including, like, very intentionally and specifically racial equity, digital access, a number of things that matter for Black communities and low income communities across the state of Maryland and in Baltimore especially. So I'm eager to really understand what you're talking about and what you're thinking about for us.
I know. I'm really excited to be here. I think I just announced last Thursday online that I'm, in the new COVID era, everything's online. So I had a fun Facebook Live where I announced that I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for state comptroller. I've been so honored to represent District 46 here in the greatest city in America, in Baltimore for the past 6 years. And really excited to take my advocacy and work for communities, for small businesses, and for families to the next level. But as you said, I think the comptroller is sort of the elected chief accountant for the state. And that individual must be focused, laser focused on the persistent racial wealth gap that exists in our state. Our state is not immune from this issue, and it holds back, of course, our Black communities, but it holds back the entire state's economy. And so I spend a lot of time on my website and my policies talking about it. And I look forward to spending time on the campaign trail for the next 18 months, hearing and listening for ideas, and then also sharing some of my thoughts as well on how the comptroller's office can be a partner in solving some of these challenges. So thanks for having me today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And I know that China mentioned a lot of what's going on in the community. A huge part of that community and our growth, especially where the comptroller's office is concerned, is our Black businesses. Yeah. Our Black businesses being able to understand how the comptroller's office works, what are the requirements for Black businesses to not only get established, but also to continue to grow and thrive.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that's huge. And, I think we need to talk more about what we can be doing to help Black-owned businesses start here and stay here, right? There are several companies that we've seen start here, but then they start growing and they realize the support doesn't exist in our state government or in our communities. And so they move someplace else, and we can't have that happening. But we've also just seen 40% of our small businesses in Maryland are Black or Brown owned, and they're really the heart of the economy. And they've been hit especially hard during the pandemic. And so we have to be especially pay a special attention to making sure that those business owners get the resources that they need. And for those who have to shutter, to help them restart, to help them have a new day, create a new business, be the entrepreneurs that we know that they can be, and then to grow those businesses. I think one of the things that we've seen over the past decade is a real collapse in the lending industry. It's just so hard to get a loan now. In Baltimore, banks doubled their deposits from 2007 to 2016, but drastically reduced their small business lending. If they'd maintained their previous lending ratio, small businesses in Baltimore would have been eligible for an additional $400 million in loans just in 1 year. And so I think it's really incumbent for the comptroller to reach out to our banks, right?
So why isn't he saying that now?
I can't speak for her.
I don't hear anyone saying that right now.
Yeah, I'm saying it. I mean, it's a big deal, and we have to talk about it. And our comptroller has to talk. I want to be in a place where the comptroller's office sees every dollar into the state, right? It's a tax collector, and signs every check, so sees every dollar out. So the comptroller's office is in a really unique position to be able to focus on these income-based issues and to work with our banking and credit union communities.
I got to get a word in, Brooke, you, and we totally skipped over this, and shame on y'all ladies. You would make history with such an election.
Yeah. I would. We have, Maryland does not have a great record at electing women statewide.
we did not skip over it. We did not skip over it.
We just haven't gotten there yet.
2020, 2021, a historical decade.
Women get elected by not making an issue of their womanhood. They just run, right? Because
this is what we do.
Look back at Clinton's win and say that maybe a mistake was to focus so much on the womanhood aspect of it. But what I love is that Delegate Lierman has 2 young kids, and I have 1 young child who's 3. So anyone with still very young ones at home, I'm thinking, oh, they get it. They might understand. But let me go back to this because you mentioned something about lending, and you know all about
this from your work, I'm sure, China.
But no, yeah, and because of that, so I'm about to ask this question. We're going to go in a different direction. Before coronavirus, we have been at American Communities Trust. We have been a very strong advocate of grants for small businesses. Grants for small businesses because in some low-income communities, especially low-income communities that are predominantly Black, there isn't the collateral, or the collateral actually doesn't have enough value to secure the loan. So loans are non-starters when it comes to actually putting small businesses back into some very low-income communities that also happen to be predominantly Black. And then coronavirus happened, and the Paycheck Protection Program happened. And our thought is that, okay, great. So hopefully now we can never go back. Now we can never go back to saying small businesses shouldn't get grants. And so can you talk to me beyond the loan? How do we get grants to these small businesses so that they can get started in the places where we need them most?
I think that's a great question. I think there's also different kinds of loans. Like if you don't have to put up collateral for a loan because it's backed by the state. Right. So the state could come in and create a loan loss reserve program, which is actually something I'm very interested in working on this session, and say, this is a non-collateralized loan because it's backed by the state. And so it will need to be paid back. But if it's not paid back, it's backed by the state already. And so the bank has the ability, the bank feels more assurance, right, about doing the loan. But I agree with you. Grants are huge. I mean, it also, you're that where we are right now with the lack of collateral speaks right to the racial wealth divide in general. And if so many white business owners use their home, right, as to get their first loan, that's their collateral. But there's the declining rates of home ownership among Black Marylanders means that Black-owned businesses don't have often that collateral. Black owners don't have that collateral of the house sometimes to put up. So, which is another issue. I think we need to be looking at home ownership in Maryland.
You're speaking my language. Is women speaking you guys' language? 40% of people in Baltimore City own property, and it's 20 percentage points below the state average. To me, ownership, I just ordered a hat from what's our brother who does the Black Wall Street game? Donnie.
Devon Walker.
Just ordered a baseball cap from him that says ownership. I can't wait to get it because I will wear it everywhere. We don't have enough people owning property in the state, and it's the impact.
And that brings up another question about ownership too. So you talked about, okay, just completely, you know, before we get into grants, because we have to address the grants. That's the first thing.
Grants.
We went back to loans, but then understanding what China was saying concerning the fact that the loans then going into a low income community where you're trying to build a thriving business and you don't have a whole lot of income coming in, puts you at a disadvantage for being able to pay back the loan in the first place. So that's where grants are absolutely essential. But then my question for you would be, if those loans or when those loans, you know, if or when don't get paid back, then because they're collateralized by the state rather than, you know, having actual property, you know, be the collateral, then who owns the business when that loan doesn't get paid back? Does it now leave from Black ownership and now the state claims ownership of that business because they're covering the loan?
Right. It's a good question, but no. So the state doesn't want to be in the business of owning businesses, right? The idea, the state would take the loss, right? It has the reserve. It would set aside reserves so that it could take the loss, basically. And on the grant front, I totally agree. You know, some of the big programs that I've worked on when I've been in the legislature are programs like BRNI, the Baltimore Regional Neighborhood Initiative Fund, which is a grant program for CDCs, right, to help small businesses, to help do community development work. And, you know, we need to see more programs like that go to CDFIs and other institutions to make the loans. I think one of the things is that the state government isn't as nimble. And I think we saw this during when they did the grants from the Department of Commerce, when they got money from the CARES Act and elsewhere. We had businesses applying for money on the first day it was open, like March 16th or March 17th. They didn't get that money until like July sometimes. And they needed that money in April. You know, they couldn't survive. And I think what that demonstrated to me was that the state sometimes just isn't as nimble as it needs to be able to make those quick loans or quick grants, which is what they ended up being. And so working with, and also it can be a cumbersome process and maybe daunting for somebody who hasn't interacted with a state agency before to apply for those. But if there's a local credit union or a local CDFI or, you know, a local bank that you can work with, that's down the block from you, and you can walk in and pull out a grant application, and the bank is part of a grant program from the state. That's a lot more accessible, I think, for more small businesses to be able to work and raise the capital that they need to get going or to keep going. Does that make sense?
So I heard two things that you were saying. You want to give more of the grants to the banks so that they can then provide this, support for the communities. But what I understand is that the banks are already in business of banking. They're not in the business of supporting businesses or educating or teaching people about finance and how to manage their businesses so they could grow, especially in our community. There are organizations that exist, like the one that China heads up, that are able to provide this kind of.
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
What can the Comptroller's office do to see that there would be more of that kind of support for our community?
It's a great question. And I think it's, yes, we need to work with the banks, but I'd say it's a yes and. So working with organizations like China's, other CDFIs like Baltimore Business Lending, SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, LEDC, the Latino Economic Development Center. There are a lot of these groups around the state. The Comptroller is, I think, uniquely positioned because it has these branch offices around the state. It's sort of like, I think MVA is probably the only other state agency that has branch offices like the Comptroller's office does, to be in a position to bring those groups in and bring them together. So bringing in an ACT and a Baltimore Business Lending and saying, hey, we have all this data, right? And we will help you, like what data will help you identify the need for in your communities or in a geographic area, because the Comptroller's office has this unique access to, all business tax returns, all individual tax returns, so can see who's thriving, who's struggling, and pinpoint a little bit more geographically to help folks like China and folks like SBDC and local governments pinpoint their programs. So it could bring, could be the center point to bring some of these groups together to say, what do you need from us to help reach out to your communities? How can we help you help them? Whether it's, creating tax programs to help do tax prep, or financial literacy programs, or technical assistance. Like, these are all things that the Comptroller's office has amazing staff and experts and could offer those resources.
But Brooke, I got what you want to do. I'm asking, why isn't it already being done now?
I can't answer that.
Johnny, she's not responsible for what other people do.
No, Delegate Lierman is the delegate.
I'm a delegate, and so I can pass legislation, and so but I can't run the agency.
I want to get some ground rules established. I'm posing the question to Brooke, not China, not Kavette. She can answer for herself. When she gets in office, you're not going to answer her phone. She is. And so we've had mad attention over the years to minority business. And I hate the term. I don't consider myself a minority. Maybe here in the United States, but globally, I'm far from a minority. But nonetheless, that's the game. We're a minority. We're 30% of the state. And every election, and I'm not at all beating up on you, Brooke. But we've heard this. We've heard this song. We've heard the violins. I don't know where China and Kavette have been in terms of elections over the past 25 years. But we've covered Annapolis, City Hall, even the White House. And honestly, it's all rhetoric. I'm not saying you, but I'm saying the people before you, and in your capacity as comptroller, it's been all men. And they think they know the Black community. We're 30% of the state. We know the game. Just like they know Black people, we know the game. The election is April? So come January, they'll inundate us with these flyers. We'll see the commercials. We'll say, oh, that's my friend. They'll get some pretty people. But at the end of the day, nothing's changed. We pushed back in 2002, the Small Business Reserve Fund, 10% of minority business reserves now go to small businesses. I was a part of pushing that issue. But 18, 19 years later, what difference have these things made? When you mentioned what the comptroller can do, one question I have as it relates to banks right now, what banks have served Black people? Who? I mean, we would love to give them a Black Wall Street award.
Harbor Bank, Maryland, is a Black-owned bank.
Harbor Bank is Black-owned. Yeah, I'm really pleased to see Chase Bank just opened the first branch, the first bank branch ever in Cherry Hill, which I represent. So I was really pleased to see that. It's taken way too long, but I'm excited about that. But you're right. I mean, we need more. Sorry, go ahead, China.
Which side of the street in Cherry Hill? So are they across the freeway on the Port Covington side, or are they
No, they're in Cherry Hill. They're in Cherry Hill. They're in the town. They're right in the town center where like everything is. Which I represent. Right? And,
Speaking for myself, I was out of the country for the last 5 years when these elections were happening. So thankfully I'm back now, and I'm here to support those who are in the process of making a difference, which obviously, Brooke, is going to be very different from what we've had in the past.
How do you say that, Kavette?
That's my goal, Kavette.
Because
look, I think
that is just inherent. She's a woman. That's different from anything we've ever had in the past. And we come with a whole different perspective. She's a mom, so she had to care for her kids. That's a whole other perspective.
I take them that, my kid goes to our local public school. It is what it is. He's been online for the past 6 months, however many months. And I represent an incredibly diverse and amazing district, that has parts of it that are absolutely thriving. And that are growing, and parts of it that, families who are really struggling, and small businesses that are struggling, and, public housing that hasn't been updated since World War II, neighborhoods where I've worked to help create community development corporations. I've, worked with ACT in Westport, and now we have a new CDC there, and worked with Mike Middleton in Cherry Hill. They're doing amazing things. So, but it's, to me, running for comptroller is like a natural extension of the community development and education advocacy, transit advocacy, all this work that I've done. because it's being able to target families and communities and small businesses, having an agency that has the tools to really help and to really bring change. And I'm really excited about that because there's so much potential.
Brooke, I just can't get that excited. I gotta see more. I'm from North Avenue, which is like Missouri. You gotta show me.
I understand.
We've heard a litany of politicians come through the community. Freddie Gray, 2015. We've heard the rhetoric. We saw people collect money for places like Sandtown. But 5 years later, the only thing that's happened here, despite being the epicenter of international media attention, is a renovated Western District Police Station. It's like they'll sing us the songs and the violins to get our vote. But after that, Sandtown looks like it did 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's not enough. And it's not happening fast enough.
I'm just not.
Right. Okay, so Donnie, you've been involved in these things. So what have been the action plans that have been put in place and then the accountability to follow up?
We're interviewing Brooke.
I appreciate that.
Because understand, Brooke, that there are going to be action plans and things that you're going to make us in terms of promises and, talking about what you're going to do.
And I'm going to be held accountable.
What Donnie is saying, these big dreams that people have had and they've spoken to what people want to hear. But the truth, the truth is in the pudding. It's what's the action that has been followed through on. And how are you going to be different in following through on that action the way that others have not?
I think it's a really important question.
To that point, Francho goes around giving people the coins. We need more than a damn coin, Brooke. The Board of Estimate,
Board of Public Works. The Board of Public Works is hugely important. Yeah.
Contracts come through there every day.
Let me clarify one thing.
No, it's hugely important. Donnie, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Donnie. But I think that if you look at what I've been able to accomplish, and if you talk to some of my constituents who are, I'm the first one to respond to their emails, Mike Middleton in Cherry Hill, he knows I show up whenever he needs me, I'm there all the time. In Curtis Bay, I think you'll find that I am an action-oriented delegate, right? I want results. And so to me, I'm really excited about having the opportunity to be on the Board of Public Works and to say, hey, I'm not just focused on that we're going to spend money to build a new school. I want to know who's going to build the new school. Why did you apply for a waiver from a minority business requirement? That's not acceptable, right? We need to make sure that we're using the dollars that we have in the state, the power of the purse, to empower our small businesses. Like, if we're not doing that as the state and using our money in a way to support and build small businesses and Black-owned businesses, then how can we expect banks to do it? We have to do it, and we can. So I'm really excited to be able to do that at the Board of Public Works and to be that voice.
Delegate Lierman, you talked about new school construction. With Martin O'Malley, as he was exiting the governorship, that was a big thing. A lot of money for new school construction. In the hundreds of millions.
Yep.
In Sandtown, we had 3 elementary schools at the turn of the 21st century.
Yep.
Now we have 1.
Yeah.
I hear new schools are being built, but not in my neighborhood. Why should I remain a Democrat when everything that I've been asked to vote for, none of it benefits my community? And I'm not at all saying that Hogan or the guys to the right have a better plan. But I am saying that the people that I've given my vote to most of my life have failed me. So why should I believe anything that comes out of the Democrats' mouths? Why should I believe it?
I'm a strong Democrat. And I'm a believer in Joe Biden and Kamala. And I know after 4 years of Donald Trump that they are going to do everything they can to turn the ship. Watching what has happened over the past 4 years as our education priorities have been decimated by an education secretary that doesn't care about urban schools and doesn't care about young women. Watching as a transportation department that doesn't care about funding transit, only wants to build new highways. and an EPA that doesn't care about what our bay looks like or how dirty it gets and doesn't want to help us support cleaning it, even though it's an economic engine for the state. I mean, I could go on. And I'll be honest, Larry Hogan too. Larry Hogan funds highway development. He doesn't fund the bus system. Larry Hogan has funded, does whatever he can to take funds away from Baltimore. That's why there's no new state center. That's why there's no new red line. He's funded deconstruction, but not building. So, to me, the record of what has happened over the past 6 years under Governor Hogan has been, so we have had to fight tooth and nail. And in the General Assembly, we don't get to allocate budget dollars, right? The governor has that. I will say, though, I'd love to talk about the schools for 1 second, because the 21st century school building plan, we have built more new schools in Baltimore City in the past 6 years than any other urban school district in America.
They're not in my neighborhood.
I don't know which school is in your neighborhood, but I will say in Cherry Hill, what used to have 3 buildings and now it has 3 old dilapidated buildings and now has 2 brand new amazing schools. And they were the first new developments in Cherry Hill in like 50 years. In Brooklyn, they have a beautiful new school. So, this is happening. Sorry?
What role did you play in that?
It runs through the school system and the Maryland Stadium Authority. So it goes through the Board of Public Works. As a delegate, it's a program that I support, but I don't do the building or contract analysis or anything like that.
Let me interject with this. Digital equity, digital access.
You're shifting gears, China. You can't shift gears like that.
It's related to students.
It's related to education.
Yeah. So because while we're on the subject of schools, I just want to throw in there digital access. Let's talk.
Yeah, we talk heavily about that.
I want to talk about the $15 billion that has come through the Maryland State Lottery that goes to the Maryland Stadium Authority, money that in 1973 was promised for education. Yet we have a new football stadium, a new baseball stadium. And Brooke, this is long before you, but they've lied to us. They've not done a damn thing. And maybe there's a new school in Reservoir Hill over there where Nick Mosby is. But in Sandtown, Winchester, the epicenter of Freddie Gray, they've closed 2 of 3 schools. So new school construction for whom?
Well, and let me add to that 44% of Black kids were missing from school.
Right.
China, this is the Brooke.
Yeah, no, that is. I think that's a huge deal, and we're talking about China. I mean, one of the things we're seeing right now, of course, is everything has moved online. And so a huge number of kids aren't able to connect. So, basically starting in in March, when I got home from Annapolis after we, closed up early, I reached out to folks at Digital Harbor Foundation and the city schools, and I've been working with them, with folks like Jonathan Moore at Rowdy Orbit, United Way down in, who's been working down in Brooklyn and elsewhere, to do what I can to be an advocate for building out a mesh network so people can have access. When I was knocking doors on the census, a few families would say to me, hey, we don't have a device. I'd connect them to city schools to make sure they could get a device, because city schools has been giving out free devices to everybody. But it's a huge issue. And you know what? We don't have a state plan to get everybody connected. And so I have a bill that I've been working on this session. I'm bringing it to create a coordinated strategy with state support to help get all of our families online, because we're not doing that right now. And 33 other states already have an office that's working on this, and we don't. And so I think it's so important that we have to have dedicated state resources to supporting local communities in every jurisdiction and figuring out a way to get everybody online. I mean, I have a question for you.
Can you help break Comcast monopoly? Can you help break Comcast monopoly?
I think that will be a part of what local governments decide to do, right? In Westminster, they created their own public utility. utility, their own public broadband network, Ting, it's called, and people can opt into it. And jurisdictions in Maryland could choose to do that, and it'll be easier for them to do things like that if they have state support, and they'll need to apply for federal grants to get dollars to lay broadband or to lay wire or whatever they need to do. And a state coordinating office could help make sure that they are in the strongest position to set themselves up for success for that.
So is that where you come into play, Brooke? Would you be able to help make sure that those offices are in place to ensure that those grants are applied for and that they're given to small businesses, maybe small Black-owned businesses in Maryland, in Baltimore, to be able to ensure that those actions are actually taken forward?
Yeah, absolutely. On the Board of Public Works, absolutely. Like if you're using state money and it's going through the Board of Public Works, absolutely. I mean, that is part of what the Board of Public Works does. It approves these contracts. It approves, procurement regulations. And so, sitting on the Board of Public Works, which is the Comptroller, the Governor, and the Treasurer, they approve every contract $200,000 or over using state money. So, if you're a jurisdiction and you want to use state money to bring in a new internet service provider, you have to go through the Board of Public Works to do that. And, the Board of Public Works staff, and if I'm lucky enough to serve on it, then I'll get to reach out to communities and be like, hey, look, you have 2 huge contracts here or 1 huge contract here. Why don't we make it 2 medium-sized contracts? And then you can have these local providers or these local Black-owned businesses carry this, rather than having the out-of-state entity come in and do it, right? So there are absolutely ways on the Board of Public Works that we could be being more proactive in how we bring value to communities, and by hiring Black-owned businesses and using our money, putting our money where our mouth is.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Mike Middleton down in Port Covington. I know that Under Armour had put in for some TIFs for that area. That's your area, right? Port Covington.
Yes. Yep. No, I cover. I don't know that Mike Middleton would want to say that he was in Port Covington. He's Cherry Hill.
Okay. But before they went to Port Covington, Alicia Wilson and others had to get to Mike and I think at least 5 other communities to make sure that they were right, to make sure there was representation.
Yeah, they signed a big community benefits agreement. Yep.
Does it look like Port Covington is going to take off? Because the last I understood, Kevin Plank was looking at jail time with Trump. I don't know if it's that bad.
I think you could.
It's not
you could have. Yeah, I don't know. I know they just did. They're going to bond sale, and so because of the community benefits agreement, when they sell bonds, some of that money, there's an agreement in place for that money to go to the SB7 organization, which includes all representatives from all of the South Baltimore communities, Westport, Lakeland, Curtis Bay, Brooklyn, Cherry Hill, Mount Winans.
Was this the best deal? That's all I want to know. Was this a good deal, or because blank?
Yes, I think it was. No, it was a really important deal for these communities, and and they will have. And I think in Cherry Hill, we're already seeing a number of national organizations come in to work with Mike, right? He has invited them in, and Cherry Hill has invited them in to say, hey, we'd like to learn from what you did in Atlanta, purpose-built communities. We'd like to learn from what you did elsewhere so that we can make sure that we're building out in a really intentional and inclusive way. So I'm really impressed by the work they're doing, the Greater Baybrook Alliance, the work that they're doing in Brooklyn and Curtis Bay, Harbor West. Like, there's really exciting things happening. I wish it happened faster, but it's happening.
Does Mike have the support he needs? Because the last I checked, he was a community guy, right?
He is a community guy. He's amazing, and
he doesn't understand business. But
no, he's very smart business guy too. He's doing great work. I think he has the support he needs. He knows Senator Ferguson, Luke Robin, or Delegate Lewis, Delegate Klippinger, and I, we're always there for him. And now Felicia Porter, the new city council person. So they are, it's been exciting to watch what's happening.
The challenge I've had in Baltimore is that too often our elected officials have never been in business. And I'm leery of having someone who's never been in business make business decisions for my community.
Yeah, understood. I think that's why you have to make sure that that elected officials are including business leaders and business owners in their discussions, right? I mean, none of us has the experience of, I'm a civil rights and disability rights attorney, right? I have represented small, I've represented small businesses in procurement matters. I've sued schools. I've, sued bus companies for low wage workers. I've represented wrongfully accused individuals. But, so not everybody who's running has my lived experience and brings my perspective to the table. And I don't bring the perspective necessarily of a business owner. Although I will say, like, running a campaign, we have a budget. And,
I think that what Donnie is talking about is a really, really key issue, because in Baltimore City, one of the fundamental challenges is the tax policy, right?
Yep.
And so as comptroller, what can you do to influence the tax policy? I think the tax policy and low income. So what are you seeing with regard to the property tax rate, the personal property tax rate? How do you see yourself as comptroller interacting with these challenges?
So as comptroller, I would have the comptroller's office in general has access to the data that comes in to seize the story of how people are doing, right? Your taxes are really like a story of how you're doing. And maybe sometimes, and they are both businesses and personal, right? I don't set tax policy as the comptroller. That is set at a local level by our city council and our mayor, and at a state level by our general assembly and the governor, right? It's policy. Right. However, the comptroller's office can make sure that the city of Baltimore and its elected officials, the county of, Baltimore County, Frederick County, the state of Maryland, understands what our tax policy, how our tax policy is affecting small businesses, either positively or adversely, and how it's affecting families, right? The comptroller can say, look, the EITC, we don't have enough families who are eligible for the earned income tax credit claiming it. We need to set up a program to make sure that more families know that they're eligible for and are claiming the EITC, right? That's the kind of work that the comptroller's office can do. Also, another thing we could do, we could see every time somebody fills out their taxes and gets a refund, if they're not getting a direct deposit, like they haven't put down their bank account where the money is going to be deposited, and instead we're giving them a debit card or a cashier's check to go use at a payday lender or get at a bank somewhere, chances are that person, that family, is unbanked, right? So I would love in the comptroller's office then to set up a program where anybody who's not asking for direct deposit, there's outreach, there's follow-up to that family to say, hey, are you connected to a bank? If not, we'd love to help introduce you to banking and show you how to bank.
Right? So how do we do that? Because the banks won't go in their neighborhood. That's one of the number one things that people ask for, in especially low income communities and Black communities in particular, is when you want a bank, it's only payday cash, payday loan, right. Cash your check type places. And when I ask banks about it, for the most part, they'll say, oh, well, we're shifting away from brick and mortar. It's all online now. But when there are new developments happening in majority white communities, you better believe that a bank is a bank.
They're lying to us, Brooke. They're lying. They're lying. At the beginning, it's just like dating a girl. In the beginning, you give her flowers, you bring wine, you bring candy, you say nice things. They lie. But after they get it, then they're gone. Then you see who they really are. We've heard they done.
I feel like Donna has had a lot of tough relationships. Yeah,
girl, and she had that experience, and we understand what not to do.
Right.
Brooke, when you think of the red line, you mentioned what Hogan hasn't done.
Yep.
And I'm not saying Hogan has been great. I am saying I haven't seen Ben jealous since then. But Ben jealous, he ran for governor.
Yeah, but he runs people for the American way now. I mean, he runs a national organization now.
But I understand what China was talking about in terms of being able to get people in the neighborhood. And it's organizations like
that I can speak for myself.
That would be able to create a grassroots effort.
Kavette, hold on.
Ben Jealous came here.
Yep.
I want to be your governor. And we haven't seen him since. In my book, that's a carpetbagger. People ran for mayor. They lost. Do they just disappear, or do they stick in the trenches with those of us who have been working? So we look at it a certain way too. But what I was getting to is that when O'Malley was governor and the red line was coming about, why didn't he leave his shovel ready?
I don't know. I wish he would have.
Because for 8 years, I've heard the Democrats, Hogan this, Hogan that, Hogan the other. How come nobody said anything about O'Malley, who had the ball in his court?
Look, I wasn't around. I wasn't in office then. I wasn't following it as closely, but I'm not willing to give Hogan a pass either. Just because O'Malley didn't do it doesn't let Hogan off the hook. I mean, he ultimately is the one 3 months after Freddie Gray to say, I'm going to pull $900 million of federal money out of Baltimore. I mean, he's the one who canceled state centers projects, which would have, he did all of this.
Already a project. Why do we have to wait for Hogan? Why didn't they already? They researched Al, what's his name, from the church, Union Baptist.
Reverend
Hathaway. They took hundreds of people, protests, and what I find in this state, it's that guy's fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. I never hear anybody say, not you, but I never hear the Democrats say, we failed you. Because what I see, the schools, the lack of transportation, the rhetoric about business, it's just talk. We don't see anything.
And I understand. I mean, I think it is really, and I feel this too. I get deeply frustrated by how long it takes to accomplish things sometimes. But I will tell you, I've only served under a Republican governor at this point. And I will say that every year we have to fight tooth and nails just to say status quo. I mean, he wants to pull money out of Bernie. He wants to pull money, when we get the budget, sometimes I look at it and I'm just like, this is incredible.
All I'm saying is, and I'll shut down China. I understand that Republicans are the devil. I get it. They are the devil. But in Baltimore, a 9-1 Democratic town, the Democrats are just as demonic because they've not touched my neighborhood. And so when a Republican comes along and then he walks around Pennsylvania Avenue, something Anthony Brown refused to do, what am I supposed to think? Oh, he's the devil? But my own Anthony Brown did not bring his hind parts to North Avenue, not once.
Well, I'm going to, Ben Jealous is running a great national organization now. Anthony Brown's doing a really good job in Congress. But look, I don't think it's enough to just walk Pennsylvania Avenue, right? Like, I think you have to listen to people and talk to them and then show up again with money and with help and with resources and connections. Like, I don't think it's enough for Larry Hogan to come. He came to Highlandtown after Freddie Gray because there was a big shooting. He came, he saw it. I showed him where the red line stop was going to be and how it was going to help revitalize the neighborhood. And then a few months later, he canceled it. Like, that's not good enough. I think we should expect more from our elected leaders. And, I think we can rise to meet this moment. The pandemic has really crystallized all the pre-existing inequities that have existed in the country and the state for so long. And I think that in every office, governor, Attorney General, Comptroller, Lieutenant Governor, all our statewide offices in 2022, we need to have people who are all in on solving these problems and are working with communities to come up with community-led solutions and bringing then the power and of the government to help.
Brooke,
so that's why I'm so excited about this.
I just want to say that in 1980, when they built State Center subway station, my dad had a funeral home, a business in the 800 block of Madison Avenue. So when I hear people talking about the red line, the purple line, I know from a personal standpoint that when you build these lines, you kill businesses. And not one of the people that have advocated, to me, understands owning a business and somebody coming through like they did with the Nowhere Highway that never built anything. So our lives, once again, get disrupted, but, for the greater good of whatever that means.
Well, I'll just say that in every other community in the country, light rail and transit creates more jobs and helps build thriving businesses. There's a reason that it is so much more expensive to live around, DuPont Circle right next to the metro than a mile away, right? And why businesses want that TOD. The Purple Line, for instance, it's very difficult right now because of construction, but in the end, it will benefit the people and the communities and the small businesses who are on it.
Now, Brooke, we're dying now.
I know we need more transit. I mean, we're the only major city on the East Coast that has a declining population, and the only city on the East Coast that doesn't have a robust transit network.
Okay, so that goes back to the creation of the dumbest subway in America. It started at Charles Center and it goes to Northwest. See, we're trying to say, okay, let's go back to the beginning. That is the dumbest subway system in the history of subway systems.
No, it's not. I've seen worse.
No.
There you go.
As Atlanta, which is south and the east-west leg. Our subway goes from downtown, and it's so indicative of the segregated mindset here in Baltimore. Going back to J. Barry Mahol, known as the father of segregation. See, we got a lot of stuff that we've never addressed here. The housing inequities that goes back to the turn of
so far back.
We've not ever addressed this stuff, including segregation in schools.
Yeah. Oh, it's worse now than it was right after Brown v. Board. No, it's much worse. And there are many things that we need to address. I'm running for Comptroller because I think the Comptroller's office is in a unique position to use the data and the power of the office, the 12 branches, to really bring change to communities and families.
Why not governor? It's wide open right now. Johnny O, he's half-stepping. Francho, I mean, he's an older guy. You already said it. So why not you for governor?
I did not say he was an older guy.
No, Johnny said that. We'll give him full credit for that.
I am really
an older guy, though. I spent,
yeah, right. Okay. I spent, 5 years on the Appropriations Committee, and so I now really have an understanding of how amazing and the potential of the Comptroller's office on the Board of Public Works, running our pension system, overseeing our pension system, using the 12 branch offices, using all the data that comes in to create a new office of outcome analysis to make sure we're harnessing that data to benefit communities. I'm just really excited about the potential of the Comptroller's office. And that's why I'm running for it. I want to be people's advocate and be out and about around the state and here in Baltimore to champion our Black-owned businesses, to champion our communities that have been left behind. And I'm excited to do it. So
Bernie came up twice while we were talking today, and we were talking about grants. And I just want to circle back on a little bit of an advocacy piece, because I think that what the Paycheck Protection Program has taught us is that we can use grants successfully for businesses to help them get to places where we want them. We can use the grants for build out, which is very helpful. But otherwise, grant dollars, I agree, are very inefficient. The most efficient dollar is the dollar of a guarantee. So I think that this loan loss revenue program is fantastic. But when we're talking about grants, we're not talking about grants going to a CDFI that's then going to turn around and give a loan to a business in a low-income community. Their interest rates are too high. The problem is that it takes low interest rates too long to reach Black communities. And by the time the low interest rate would reach the Black community, the interest rates are high again. So what
agreed.
Are the 3% interest rates in Black communities, not the 7% and 8% interest rates that come from the CDFIs.
Yeah, and the CDFIs charge those really high rates because the banks loan them money at super high rates, right? It's a huge problem. I mean, it's this
non-starter for us. Non-starter. So the programs for the build out to get the businesses where they need to be, grant money going directly to the business, not being channeled through a CDFI.
Is that the question?
No, I don't disagree with that. That's sort of like, I mean, do you know the Neighborhood Business Works program?
Do I ever? I'm a participant in it.
Are you? Great. Well, I'd love to hear your perspective, but I think that's the kind of program that seems like it's been very successful at, and so needs to be built out more, right?
Absolutely.
And I think what your point goes to, there's no one size fits all, right? We need to have sort of different types of programs for different for different businesses, because some businesses might be able to apply for a certain program like a neighborhood business works. Other programs might not fit those, that might not fit their need, and so they go someplace else. But we also want to make sure we're leveraging state dollars, so they go further to help more businesses. And keeping in mind that we work with Ms. Bidfa and Stanley Tucker and MMG, on the work that he and Ms. Bidfa are doing to support Black-owned businesses, because they have certainly been very successful during the pandemic at getting dollars out as well. They've had many more applications, and they need more money because they've had so many applications coming in for help. So there's a lot going on for sure. Thank you for having me today.
Well, I think there's just one last thing, right? Donnie, what about parting thoughts on what the Congress did yesterday? So Congress just put out $7 billion for digital access. There are parts of it that are very concerning to me, but $50 rebate for families in low-income communities. I'm hoping cable companies don't just raise their prices. Any thoughts on this?
For me or for the guests?
I wasn't sure.
Delegate Lierman.
Oh, sorry. No, it's a great question. I think it's going to end up being, it's vitally important that they passed something. In some ways, I think it was too little, too late, right? They've had 9 months to come together and pass something. I have hundreds and hundreds of constituents who have been trying to get unemployment, who've been on, the pandemic unemployment, who are so afraid that it's about to run out. And so I'm very grateful that they were finally able to pass something, but I am very worried that because it has been so long coming, that it won't end up reaching people who need it. And the eviction moratorium, my understanding, it's only for another month, which is clearly not going to be long enough. And so I think there's a number of things that I'm not sure that they were adequately addressed in this bill. And I think that President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris are going to have a lot of work to do. I mean, I know they're going to have a lot of work to do, but I think in this specific, relief for families and small businesses and transit agencies and on a host, there was no money for local or state government, right, at all in this bill. And so there's a lot more to do, I think. I'm grateful they did this, but there's a lot more to do.
So why should people vote for you, Brooke Lierman, for Comptroller?
Look, I will be asking for folks' votes for the next 18 months, listening to their needs, listening to community and family and small business needs. I'm going to run a 24-county campaign so that I can make sure that I can be a 24-county comptroller, like working with people all over, meeting them where they are. At the end of the day, I'm going to be their advocate, right? I have worked with my constituents in District 46 to be their champion. And I want people to know that I will be their comptroller, right? I will be their advocate, a community advocate, a family advocate, an advocate for our Black-owned businesses, to be there they'll have their voice on the Board of Public Works, their voice on the Board of Trustees for our pensions, their voice in these 12 field offices around the state, bringing them together with the resources that they need. So I'm excited to bring a bold new vision to the comptroller's office. And I'm, ask for people to join me over the next 18 months, educate me about what they need, and then hopefully I can earn their support and yours, Donnie.
We're going to get you a T-shirt that says, "I survived the BmoreNews morning show," but I got to let you know, it was our job to prep you.
That queen was making it way easier.
Our job to prep you because Delegate Lierman, when you go down the road to gorgeous Prince George's County, black jurisdiction, those Black business owners, there are even more of them. They've got even more money, and they're going to be fighting. They're going to be hitting you with gut shots like Mike Tyson. And it's our job to get you prepped. So if you can survive this, you'll have a better chance surviving gorgeous.
Well, it's not about surviving, Donnie. It's about thriving, right? I mean, it's about listening and learning, right? I mean, this is what you do when you're running for office. Sorry.
And being able to create the action plans that will actually, be able to follow up with some accountability. Donnie, you brought that out before, so that you can see that you're not just, saying what you're going to do, but you actually follow through on that.
Right. And if I'm elected, I expect all of you to hold me accountable, and I will come back on this show and we will talk about the things I'm putting in place and how we're working on it. So thank you.
As the first woman comptroller, what message does that send, not just to women in Maryland, but to women around the country?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
this is
look,
2020, and I looked at the list last night. I could not believe it. There's never been a woman comptroller. Why?
I mean, we've never elected a woman governor, comptroller, or attorney general in Maryland.
We've only three comptrollers. We've only had three, right? In
Yeah,
Maryland.
Louis Goldstein, William Donald Schaefer, and Peter Franchot. Yeah, but so in other words, we haven't elected a woman to statewide state office in her own right, period. It's just Maryland and Tennessee that haven't done that. Right. So, I think it's time to break some more glass ceilings. Somebody the other day said, "Are you going to be able to fill Francho's shoes?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't think he wears high heels. So we have a really different type of shoe."
we saw Mr. Franchot, the comptroller, come through here. I remember when he was a delegate. I was a social services commissioner when he was a delegate representing Montgomery County. And we remember his attitude towards the high level of need in Baltimore City. Baltimore City is nothing like Montgomery County. And I remember how he was a little, why does Baltimore need so much? So when people go beyond their district to statewide, then they're your friend. Hey, buddy. Hey, pal. We know the game.
My family and I live here in Baltimore. We're not going anywhere. And I am of the strong belief that Maryland can never be a truly great state until Baltimore City reaches its full potential. I think I work for Senator Paul Wellstone, and like he used to say, I believe we all do better when we all do better. So Bethesda is never going to succeed. If Baltimore doesn't succeed, Cumberland can't do well. If Salisbury's not thriving, we are a small state. And our economies are intertwined, and so we all need to be working together to make the state work. Each and every community. We can't leave anybody behind.
We got to give credit where credit is due, because we're talking about women and leadership and money, basically. But I want to point out that Delegate Maggie McIntosh has been a very powerful and strong chair of the Appropriations Committee for a long time.
She's a fantastic chair of the Appropriations Committee, and without her there, these past 8 years would have been much darker for Baltimore City.
I wish they could appropriate something for Sandtown, because we haven't seen a dime since Freddie Gray. One last question for you, Brooke. Who makes the best crab cake in Baltimore?
Who does make the best crab cake in Baltimore? That's a good question. We go all over. I'm a big fan of, right around the corner from my house. So super easy. I go to Cooper's a lot. I'm also, so I got to give a shout out to my local restaurants who are hurting in Fells Point. God, I mean, there are a lot of good crab cakes in Baltimore. I used to,
Donnie. I think you might be feeling too, Brooke.
Crab cake, Brooke?
Do I make a good crab cake? I don't make a good crab cake. I'm not going to claim that I make a good crab cake. I buy my crab cakes. I know what I can make. I'm a good baker. I do cookies. I make dinner, but I don't do crab cakes.
How is Wall Street Market doing?
It's tough. All the restaurants and all the markets, I think it's been really tough. And I had a quick break in between Zooms the other day and ran up to our house to get lunch from STEM Kitchen, which is a great place. And it's just tough for all the restaurants and all the small businesses right now. People are really hurting, and they employ our neighbors and our friends. And so, anything folks can do to shop local, dine local this holiday season, if you have the resources to, please do, because people are really hurting. Sorry?
The same Our House in Remington?
Yeah, I love Our House in Remington.
Yeah, great spot.
Great spot, yeah. But there are a lot of great spots all over the city. Yeah. there are a lot of great spots all over the city. So I try to get out and about and support different places. Use your dollars wisely, folks.
Well, I'll tell you, according to BmoreNews poll, Conrad's has been voted the best crab cake in Baltimore City.
Conrad's does make it. I will remember that, and the next time we need crab cakes, I will get them from Conrad's.
I've never had one. I support Fadley's.
Fadley's of course. How did I not think of Fadley's? Of course. I was trying to think. Of course, Fadley's is amazing. Yeah. Oh, Fadley's, these huge, and they're so big. God, they're like, oh, it's like an ice cream scoop of crab cake on your dish. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, Faileys is the best.
That's fabulous.
No, Faileys is the best. You're right. Sorry. Cooper's is delicious, but Faileys is so good. Yeah. Well, thanks all of you for doing this, for having me. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. Here's looking to 2021 for vaccines and a new federal administration, and more work for everybody. So and more community and healthy Happy New Year to all of you. So thank you.
How can people support you? How can people reach you?
Yeah, please check out my website. It's just BrookeLierman.com. I have a host of resources and policy ideas on it, BrookeLierman.com. And we are doing kickoff events, kickoff meet and greets, not fundraisers, just meet and greets all over the state. Prince George's meet and greet, Montgomery County, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, different meet and greets every night of the first week of January. So please sign up, BrookeLierman.com/kickoff. Join us at a meet and greet. So thank you.
I'm willing to go across the Bay Bridge because they've got even better crab cakes and crabs over there. Talbot County, put me down.
Yeah,
they do. And there's Evo. I love Evo in Salisbury, the brewery, great brewery over in Salisbury too. So we have some great ones here as well. But yeah, awesome. Good.
Mommy, should you give us the mantra?
Well, Kivette, you want to put a plug in for yourself?
Yeah, sure. I am Kivette Minor-Kane. I am a financial liberation expert, and you can reach me online on Instagram or Facebook at More Life, or you can just find me at I Am Kivette, and connect to myself personally or through my business for services and products. So
you want to plug your
at actimpact.org, and my cell phone is 410-989-1607. We are working very diligently on putting small businesses into low-income communities as a hook for creating market value in those neighborhoods and building wealth.
And you have space to lease.
We do. We have our last building to lease.
Oh, yeah.
All already pre-leased, so we're super excited about that. Bringing in Granny's. Patango's going to manufacture some gelato. We've also got a great catering company coming in to do an event space. So all really exciting, good stuff. Half Black-owned businesses. So thrilling. And then we have just 6,000 square feet more to lease. So if you're interested, call me. We understand where the market is right now. So definitely willing to talk. Don't be shy.
Good deal. Thank you, everyone. Up to date, down tomorrow. Do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it regardless of how I feel. I am somebody. I am my brother's keeper. Good morning, Baltimore.
Good morning.
Good morning.